After getting a second chance at life, the first thing I did was tear up my college acceptance letter with my own hands. I also firmly turned down the dramatic declarations of love from two girls, Sophia and Isabel, who had been my close friends in my previous life. Back then, I had chosen Sophia. But on our wedding day, she abandoned me at the altar, running off to be with another guy named Mark. The shock and heartbreak of her betrayal caused my grandmother, the woman who raised me, to suffer a fatal heart attack. In that moment of utter despair, my other friend, Isabel, took my hand and promised, "You still have me. I'll never betray you." She helped me navigate the darkness that followed, but after we eventually married, our relationship turned cold and distant. I mistakenly thought maybe she regretted that we couldn't have children. It wasn't until a devastating car accident that I learned the horrifying truth. As I lay dying in the wreckage, Isabel ignored my critical injuries to save Mark, who had only suffered minor scrapes. I died right there on the roadside. As my soul lingered, I discovered the full extent of their betrayal. My entire life had merely been a pawn in a twisted love game orchestrated by the three of them, Sophia, Isabel, and Mark. They had secretly arranged long ago for all their inheritances to go to Mark. And the reason we never had children? They had bribed a doctor to sterilize me shortly after our marriage, a cruel act meant to prove their unwavering loyalty to Mark. Starting over, with the sharp clarity of hindsight, I decided my path would be different. I would stay far away from all three of them and finally live my own life, on my own terms. When I tore up the university admission letter in the school office, my homeroom teacher stared at me, completely shocked. "Leo, what are you doing?" he exclaimed. This year, our high school had produced 4 students accepted into top-tier universities, a significant achievement. I was the only one among them who had achieved the top score in the entire city. It wasn't just my teacher. Every educator in the school had high hopes for my future. "I don't want to go to that university," I stated calmly. "I've already applied to and been accepted by a special research group. They've also promised to provide excellent medical care for my grandmother." "Oh, I see. That explains it," the teacher said, his expression softening with understanding. "I know your family circumstances have been difficult, Leo. Just make sure you study hard, build a better future for yourself, and repay your grandmother for all her sacrifices in raising you." I nodded silently. I hadn't even had a moment to properly process the grief or nostalgia from my past life before my phone started ringing. It was Sophia and Isabel, urgently telling me to come downstairs right away. As I walked through the school hallways and down the stairs, I noticed people pointing and whispering as I passed. Someone even deliberately tripped me on the staircase. "Bastard!" they cursed under their breath as I stumbled. Confused, I picked myself up, my ankle throbbing, and continued on my way. As I rounded a corner, I overheard Mark talking with 2 of his friends. "I did see Leo getting out of the school director's car late one night," Mark was saying. "But that doesn't necessarily mean anything improper happened. Maybe he got into university based on his own academic performance." "Come on, Mark, stop defending him," one of his friends scoffed. "He's too scared to even release his final grades. He must be hiding something." "Yeah, Mark," the other chimed in. "You're too kind-hearted. You always get fooled by guys like him. A cunning person like Leo is capable of anything." After joining the research group, I had signed a confidentiality agreement which meant my final exam scores were sealed and not publicly released. Little did I know at the time, this necessary step provided Mark with the perfect excuse to spread malicious rumors about me. And my 2 supposed best friends, Sophia and Isabel, who knew exactly how hard I had studied, especially for my grandmother's sake, still chose to believe Mark's lies over me. I chuckled bitterly to myself, trying to brush it off. It didn't matter anymore. Once I officially entered the research group, my identity and records would be classified, Then I could finally cut all ties with them completely. No more listening to hurtful comments, no more living a life built on lies and betrayal, a life destined to end in tragedy. Pretending I hadn't overheard their conversation, I walked up to the three of them. "So, what's up?" I asked casually. Sophia's initial look of disdain quickly transformed into a bright smile. "Leo, that's great news! It means we can all be in the same school together again. All your hard work finally paid off." Isabel smiled, too, adding playfully, "Just being around you for a few more years isn't enough. It has to be for a lifetime." A couple of guys walking past looked at me with open envy, but I felt completely numb inside. In my previous life, the four of us had indeed attended the same university. I had worked tirelessly, aiming for a bright future, actively participating in school activities and research projects. But in the end, my hard-earned scholarships and valuable research opportunities were secretly manipulated and handed over to Mark. Vicious rumors spread like wildfire, claiming I had inappropriate relationships with school administrators to gain advantages. I endured 4 years of relentless bullying and isolation. Back then, Sophia and Isabel always promised to stand by my side, to protect me. It was only after my death that I discovered they were the ones orchestrating the entire smear campaign, using my misery and suffering as a way to please Mark, the object of their shared affection. Seeing my silence now, Mark spoke up, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Lucky you, Leo. Like a little prince, always having 2 loyal friends by your side. Unlike me. If it weren't for Leo's help over the years, I probably couldn't even afford to go to school." Hearing this, both Sophia and Isabel immediately turned their concern towards Mark. "Don't say that, Mark," Sophia sympathized. "You're handsome and talented. Great things are definitely headed your way. Once you graduate, I'll ask my dad to get you a manager position at his company." "No, Mark, come to my family's company," Isabel countered immediately. "I'll give you a higher position and a better salary, whatever you want." Listening to them bicker over Mark, showering him with promises and affection that were never directed towards me, left a bitter taste in my mouth. We had known each other our entire lives. Yet such devotion was never mine to receive. Their fake displays of affection couldn't compare to genuine care. As I was about to turn and leave, Sophia seemed to notice something was off about my demeanor. "Leo, don't get the wrong idea," she said quickly, a hint of guilt in her voice. "We only care about Mark because he's your friend." Isabel reached out and ruffled my hair, a gesture she used to do when we were kids. "Don't overthink things, Leo. We finally finished our exams. Let's go for a drive. We even got gifts for you." I nodded, not refusing their invitation. I knew I would be leaving the city soon, and I wanted one last look at the familiar streets and places where we had grown up together. In the parking garage, Sophia and Isabel eagerly directed Mark to sit in the front passenger seat of Sophia's car, a spot usually reserved for me. Mark looked at me, feigning a dilemma. "Isn't Leo usually the only one allowed in your passenger seat, Sophia? If I sit there, won't your brother get mad?" Sophia quickly pushed Mark into the seat. "He doesn't deserve it, and he won't get mad. He has the best temper." Isabel shot Sophia an annoyed look, then slammed the back car door shut with a displeased expression. It wasn't until the car was about to start that they realized I hadn't gotten in. They rolled down the window, exchanging awkward glances, wanting to explain but unable to find the right words. "It's fine," I said evenly. "I'll just drive my own car." Hearing me say that, both of them seemed to sigh in relief, yet they also looked puzzled by my unusually detached behavior. I rolled up my window, not wanting to listen to any more of their false excuses. But as I drove through the familiar city streets, the passing scenery brought back a flood of unforgettable memories. The three of us, Sophia, Isabel, and I, had grown up together. Both of their prominent families had hoped I would eventually marry into their lineage, becoming a son-in-law. Unfortunately, my parents passed away in a tragic accident when I was young, leaving only my grandmother and me as the remaining members of the once vast G family. Just the two of us, supporting a shaky household surrounded by relatives who likely saw us as vulnerable. Because of this, I had worked incredibly hard from a young age, striving to take on the responsibilities of my family name. Meanwhile, Mark came from a poor background and was often treated as an outcast at school. When I found out he was also an orphan, I felt a sense of sympathy for him and befriended him. I even helped support his education financially, encouraging him to persevere alongside me. But he misinterpreted my kindness as pity. He grew envious of the privileges and connections I possessed and began subtly manipulating my two closest friends. Together, the three of them systematically ruined my life. By the time I arrived at our destination, a scenic lookout point, Sophia and Isabel were clearly feeling uneasy about the earlier incident in the garage. They rushed over as I got out of my car, busily opening my door and grabbing my bag. "Leo, check this place out!" Sophia exclaimed, trying to sound cheerful. "It's that park we used to hang out at all the time as kids. We bought the land, now it's our own secret base." Isabel nodded eagerly. "I've already arranged to have your favorite yellow roses planted all over here. By next year, this whole place will be a sea of beautiful roses. The four of us can come here anytime, cruise around, watch the stars." Their faces were bright, filled with elaborate dreams for our shared future, but I just stared silently at the plot of land. This was indeed our childhood secret spot, holding many happy memories. But I had never liked yellow roses. In fact, I was allergic to all types of pollen. Lost in thought, I watched as fireworks suddenly lit up the night sky above us, spelling out my name, Leo, in brilliant, sparkling colors. In this deliberately dreamy and romantic setting, Sophia took out a beautiful antique locket from her pocket, offering it to me. "Leo, this is a family heirloom," she said softly. "My parents intended for it to be given to their future son-in-law. I've wanted to give it to you for such a long time, and I finally have the chance today. Leo, please be with me, okay?" Before I could respond, Isabel stepped forward urgently. "Don't you remember when we were kids, Leo, and you fell out of that tall tree? It was me who saved you, risking my own safety to climb up and help you down. I would give you my life, Leo. What's a little locket compared to that?" In my past life, I had been completely fooled by their seemingly deep affection and shared history. I foolishly believed that being childhood friends guaranteed a happy ending, that marrying one of them would provide my grandmother with the family support she needed. It was only on the day I died that I learned the devastating truth. Even profound emotions and lifelong bonds could be faked, manipulated for ulterior motives. Just as I was about to refuse both of them, Mark spoke up, interrupting the moment. "Leo, why did you tell people I was the one spreading those rumors about you?" he demanded, his voice laced with accusation. "Now everyone online is hating on me." He shoved his phone aggressively in my face. The screen showed the school's online forum, filled with hundreds of comments calling me shameless, accusing me of sleeping my way into college. The few comments defending me had been cleverly twisted by Mark's replies to look like further accusations against himself. Isabel snatched the phone away, her face flushed with anger. "Leo, how could you do this?" she demanded furiously. "Even if you've messed up yourself, why drag Richard down with you?" Sophia, usually calmer, still gave me a sharp, questioning look. I forced myself to hold back my emotions. "I didn't do it," I stated flatly. "If you don't believe me, check the posting times and IP addresses yourself." Neither of them listened. They were already busy comforting Mark. Richard, don't worry, Sophia soothed him. I'll get my family's PR department to handle this right away. Isabel added, Sweet treats always cheer you up, right? Let's go get you some ice cream. They flanked Mark protectively, walking away without even a backward glance at me. I took a deep breath, staring up at the fading ashes of the fireworks against the dark sky. Compared to facing actual life and death, these petty miseries and betrayals seemed almost insignificant now. At least I was alive. I had new days ahead, a future I could shape for myself. I intended to drive straight home, but then I remembered Isabel still had my bag with my keys. Annoyed, I had no choice but to follow the three of them. As I passed by a thicket of trees near the park entrance, I overheard Isabel's impatient voice. Mark, how much longer do we have to keep up this charade? Leo is such an unpredictable variable. Who knows what kind of infections he might have picked up? Sophia added disdainfully, Leo is so clueless he can't even tell an antique locket from a cheap fake. No wonder he supposedly got seduced by some older woman. He's completely unworthy of being my family's son-in-law. Mark, only you deserve the real family heirloom locket. Mark looked at them with a pitiful expression. But Leo, he may have done a lot of bad things, but he was always good to me. I can't just abandon him like this. If you don't do exactly what I say, Isabel threatened immediately, I won't talk to you anymore. Hearing that, these two normally high and mighty young women panicked, instantly apologizing profusely to Mark, practically trampling over my memory and our shared history to put him on a pedestal. A friendship nurtured over 10 years couldn't compare to a few calculated words from Mark. Holding back tears that threatened to spill, I turned and walked away into the endless night. I trudged home, weary and heartsick. By the time I finally arrived, my twisted ankle was swollen to an unrecognizable size. Grandma was heartbroken when she saw it, rushing to gently apply ointment. Not wanting her to worry more, I told her about my acceptance into the special research group and my decision not to attend the local university. She was both surprised and immensely delighted. My Leo has really made something of himself, she exclaimed, her eyes shining with pride. Grandma's getting old now, Leo. You're the only one left to carry on our family name and legacy. I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. After all these difficult years, there's finally some good news in our family, Grandma continued happily. Grandma is definitely going to throw a big party to celebrate. Her smiling face, full of hope and pride, was exactly how I remembered her from my last life, just before she sent me off to get married. She had been so happy then, thinking I had found a good match, a secure future. But then Sophia ran away at the wedding, and the devastating shock killed her right there. Now that I had another chance, I vowed I wouldn't let history repeat itself. Grandma was getting older, so I took charge of organizing all the details for the celebratory party myself. When Sophia and Isabel heard the news, they came by my house, offering to help with the preparations. They even brought my favorite childhood chocolate cake as a way to apologize. Leo, you haven't replied to our messages for days, Sophia said tentatively. Are you still mad about what happened at the park? Isabel added quickly. We didn't blame you on purpose, really. We just didn't want you to go down the wrong path. Reputation is very important for people in our circles, you know. I didn't forgive them, not really, but I allowed them to stay and help. In my past life, they owed me far too much. Grudges weren't easily forgotten, but in this life, my main goal was simply to distance myself from them, to never see them again if possible. After my parents passed away, our family's standing had declined significantly. But now, with my acceptance into the prestigious research group, I was proving to everyone that my family still had a future, that we wouldn't be pushed around or looked down upon anymore. That was why Grandma was taking this party so seriously. It was a statement. On the day of the party, our house was filled with the city's elite influential figures, old family friends, business associates. Mark strolled in confidently, wearing an expensive custom-made suit, trailing slightly behind Sophia and Isabel. He looked around the luxuriously decorated hall, his eyes filled with unconcealed jealousy. "Leo's lucky," I could almost hear him thinking. "But despite your fancy background and good grades, I can still make your life miserable." Just then, the large projection screen at the front of the room, which was supposed to be showing a celebratory slideshow, suddenly displayed a series of shocking photos. They were all images of me, naked, in bed with various different women. Gasps filled the room. "Isn't that Leo? Wow, he's really playing around. Kids without proper parental guidance just don't turn out well. No wonder they said he slept his way into college. Looks like it was true after all. His family's completely done for now, letting their only heir turn into some kind of gigolo." I had endured this exact kind of public humiliation twice in my past life. Once at my wedding, when Sophia ran off with Mark, causing Grandma's death. And once more at my own funeral, where before my body was even cold, Isabel proposed to Mark right there, turning my entire existence into one big tragic joke. Remembering the pain of the past, I quickly looked towards Grandma. She was breathing heavily, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief as she stared at the photos on the screen. My Leo wouldn't do such things," she whispered, clutching her chest. Seeing her condition, my heart sank with dread. I begged the people standing nearby to help me get Grandma to the hospital, but they all instinctively stepped back, fearful of being associated with the scandal surrounding me. In the end, it was Sophia and Isabel who pushed through the stunned crowd. Sophia drove frantically while Isabel and I supported Grandma in the back seat, rushing her to the nearest hospital. Thank goodness we got there in time. The doctors said the shock could have been fatal if we had delayed any longer. I thanked the doctor profusely, then stayed by Grandma's bedside, pulling up the security footage from the party on my tablet. As expected, I saw Mark's figure lurking near the projector equipment shortly before the photos appeared. He had deliberately switched the presentation files. The photos were all fakes, digitally manipulated. I immediately saved the footage, intending to report it to the police, but as I stood up, Sophia and Isabel blocked my path. "It was just a joke, Leo," Sophia said dismissively. "Is it really worth making such a big deal out of it?" Isabel added sharply, "Do you have any idea what will happen to Mark if you report this?" I froze, then couldn't hold back my anger any longer. "What about me?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "My grandmother nearly died. Doesn't he care about completely ruining me and my family's reputation?" Isabel immediately stepped protectively in front of where Mark would have been standing and shoved me hard. "Leo, your grandmother is fine now, right? And blame only sticks if there's some truth to it. You must have done something shameful yourself for these kinds of rumors to spread in the first place." Her words, which would have devastated me in the past, now felt strangely distant. My heart felt numb. I pushed them away, trying to get past. Sophia grabbed my wrist tightly, her expression turning cold and cryptic. "Leo, don't bother trying to report this. You know neither of our families will allow any lawyer in this city to take your case against Mark." When I still refused to back down, struggling against her grip, Sophia tightened it painfully. "Don't forget, your grandmother is still in the hospital," she threatened, her voice low and menacing. "With just one word from me, I could stop her treatment completely. I'll count to 3. If you don't hand over that surveillance video right now, I'll pull the plug myself." Right in front of me, she started dialing a number on her phone. 3, 2... "I'm sorry," I choked out, dropping to my knees, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't take that chance, not with Grandma's life hanging in the balance. Isabel immediately snatched my tablet, smashing it violently against the floor. The breaking shards of the screen scattered, a few cutting my skin. She looked down at me coldly. "As long as we're here, Leo, you will never hurt Mark." I sat there on the cold hospital floor, broken and defeated, until they finally left. Only then did the physical and emotional pain truly set in. Years of suppressed resentment finally overflowed, and I cried uncontrollably. Promises made when we were young meant nothing. Lifelong friendships were a lie. Only the hurt, the betrayal, felt real. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I managed to pull myself together and return to Grandma's hospital room, feeling like a soulless shell. I was terrified that Sophia or Isabel might actually try to harm Grandma, so I stayed by her side constantly, never leaving her alone for days. During that time, the only messages I received were from Mark, filled with fake concern. My supposed friends, Sophia and Isabel, had apparently taken him traveling, bungee jumping, visiting exotic locations, doing all the things the three of us had once promised we would do together. I blocked Mark's number. One afternoon, as I was reading by Grandma's bedside, I looked up to see two well-dressed women standing respectfully in the doorway. They saluted crisply. "Mr. Leo, we are medics sent by the organization," one of them said professionally. "Please don't worry. We will ensure your grandmother receives the best possible care and remains safe and healthy while you are away." That's when I realized it was finally time for me to leave. I went back to my family home one last time, systematically getting rid of everything that reminded me of Sophia and Isabel. Photos, gifts, letters. Then, without looking back, I left the city and boarded a plane. Sophia and Isabel were never my true support system. I had to rely on myself, for Grandma's sake, and for the brighter future I was determined to build for my family. After their trip, with the new school term about to begin, Sophia and Isabel returned home. They had enjoyed their travels, but apparently something nagged at their consciences. They felt that what they had done to me, siding so completely with Mark, had gone too far. They acknowledged, perhaps only to themselves, that I was already struggling, having lost my parents at a young age and now only having my frail grandmother. Maybe I had been led astray, but they reasoned, you couldn't entirely blame me. After all, they were my friends, practically sisters, who had grown up with me. They felt it was their responsibility to offer guidance. With that mindset, they bought a large assortment of expensive gifts they thought I would like on their way back. Once home, they gathered various health supplements and delicacies and went to visit my grandmother at the hospital where the research group had placed her under special care. However, they were firmly turned away at the door. "The old lady is under special protection," the guards informed them curtly. "We cannot allow random people to disturb her rest." Being called random people deeply stung both Sophia and Isabel. They had grown up with me. They considered themselves family, even if not by blood. How could they accept being dismissed so easily? Isabel, always quick-tempered, looked ready to argue, but Sophia, ever the strategist, frowned slightly and stopped her. As heirs to powerful families, she quickly recognized that the guards in front of them were no ordinary security personnel. "Where's Leo?" Sophia demanded instead. "Let him come here and tell us himself if we're really just outsiders to him." The guard replied coldly, "No comment." They were firmly shown the door. Feeling defeated and frustrated, Isabel cursed under her breath as they walked away, complaining that my attitude was getting worse and worse, wondering where I had picked up such bad behavior. "We spoiled him too much," she grumbled. "Now look at him." "Let's go check his old house," Sophia suggested, a growing sense of unease settling over her. It felt like a piece of her heart was suddenly missing, and the feeling was deeply unsettling. They drove to my family's old house. The place was dark and silent, not a soul around. Even Isabel, who had been full of righteous anger earlier, couldn't stay still. Just like they used to do when they were kids, sneaking around, they climbed over the garden wall and let themselves into the property. They made their way to my old bedroom, only to find it completely empty, covered in a thin layer of dust. "How could this happen?" Sophia whispered, looking around in disbelief. "Where is Leo?" Isabel frantically searched the empty closets and drawers. "Where are the things I gave him? Leo treasured those gifts more than anything." "The gifts I gave him are all gone too," Sophia added, her voice tight with panic. "And the photos of the three of us, our travel diaries, everything's missing." They exchanged worried glances, a heavy sense of unease filling the empty room, settling into every corner of their hearts. Where could I have possibly gone? My family's influence had waned significantly over the years. No other prominent family would likely dare to take me in against their wishes. "He must just be hiding somewhere out of anger," Isabel declared, trying to sound confident. "Once we find him, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. He's acting like a spoiled brat, and he has no right to treat us like this." They started calling everyone they knew, asking their friends and contacts for any information about my whereabouts. They even mobilized their family's security teams to conduct a citywide search. From sunset until sunrise, they scoured the entire city, but there was no sign of me. My ID cards, bank accounts, everything seemed inactive, useless for tracking. The only person who might know where I was, my grandmother, was inaccessible to them. Leo, the boy who had seemed to always be by their side no matter what, had now completely vanished. It was as if I had turned into thin air, leaving absolutely no trace behind. Sophia and Isabel were overwhelmed with a confusing mix of fear and sorrow, so much so that even their planned meeting with Mark held no interest for them anymore. Where could Leo have gone? Was he truly that mad at them? Would he ever forgive them? The empty room offered only silence in response. The bright, smart little boy they knew seemed lost forever. After the long plane ride, followed by an equally long car trip through remote areas, I finally reached my destination, the research center. My assigned teacher, the one who had interviewed me initially, was incredibly welcoming upon my arrival. "Finally, you're here, Leo," he greeted me warmly. "When we heard you were considering other universities, we were genuinely heartbroken. We couldn't bear the thought of letting such a talented young mind slip through our fingers." "Thank you, teacher," I said, bowing respectfully. "I'll study hard and promise not to let you down." "From your application records," the teacher continued, looking curious, "it seems you've had a strong interest in this specific field from a very young age. Why did you even consider applying to those other schools?" Caught off guard by the question, I hesitated, unsure how to respond honestly. The truth was, pursuing a conventional university path had largely been Sophia's and Isabel's dream for us. The three of us had grown up inseparable, from learning our first words to navigating adolescence, hardly spending a day apart. We had made a childhood promise that we would all attend the same university, that we would never be separated. But then Mark came into the picture and subtly took my place in their plans. Sophia and Isabel had used their family's connections to secure special admission spots for themselves. They had also invested heavily, pulling strings I couldn't even imagine to ensure Mark got accepted too. I never thought they would stoop so low as to throw me under the bus, spreading rumors that I had used unethical means to secure my own legitimate acceptance. Thinking back on that painful period, I gave a slightly bitter smile. "I was young and naive back then, teacher," I admitted. "I trusted the wrong people and made some poor choices based on their influence." Now that I've been given a second chance, a different path, I am determined not to repeat those mistakes. Heaven had granted me another shot at life, and I intended to make the most of it, to live up to my true potential. My teacher looked pleased, patting my back encouragingly. Good. That's the spirit we like to see. At first, I admit, I was a little worried if a young master from a privileged background like yours could handle the tough, demanding life here at the research center. But seeing your resolve now, I'm confident. The future belongs to bright young folks like you. No hardship here can compare to what I've endured in the past, I replied quietly. At least now, my grandmother is alive and well cared for. And I'm no longer wasting my life focused on two people who aren't worth my time or energy. With that renewed determination, I threw myself completely into my studies and research, ignoring everything else outside the lab. One day, however, as I was leaving the laboratory building, I ran straight into Sophia and Isabel. I rubbed my eyes, momentarily thinking the long hours and lack of sleep were causing hallucinations. But there they were, calling my name, their voices clear as day. My mentor, walking beside me, quietly warned, "Leo, be careful with these two. I heard they invested a staggering $20 million just for the privilege of being shown around the lab facilities today." Isabel, clearly unhappy with my mentor's presence, pulled me aside impatiently. "Can't you keep yourself out of trouble, Leo?" she demanded accusatorily. "Flirting around wherever you go? If you're that desperate to get hitched, you might as well just come to me." My mentor looked ready to defend me, but knowing Isabel's volatile temper all too well, I subtly signaled for her to leave, not wanting her to get caught in the crossfire. Sophia, maintaining a bit more composure, looked at me with a complicated mix of emotions in her eyes. "Leo, why did you leave without saying a single word? Why did you suddenly change all your plans? Why did you throw away all the things we gave you? Why did you just leave us behind?" Her barrage of questions made my head ache. I rubbed my temples, trying to stay calm, but my tone was harsh when I finally spoke. "Sophia, what right do you have to question me? What exactly are you to me?" "I am—" Her hand, which had reached out towards me, hung suspended in mid-air, unsure of how to finish the sentence. In this life, I had never accepted her confession, never reciprocated her intense feelings. In my heart, she was now nothing to me. As for the little bit of friendship that might have remained, it had been completely worn away by their repeated betrayals and hurts. The usually defiant Isabel seemed to put aside her pride for a moment. She lowered her head slightly, her voice softer than usual. "Leo, we know what we did last time was wrong. But there was no need to be so heartless, to just disappear like that. Do you have any idea how desperately we've been looking for you?" They proceeded to tell me that after I left, they were almost driven mad with worry and guilt. In the end, feeling utterly desperate, they had no choice but to go kneel in front of my grandmother, begging her for any information about my whereabouts. Grandma, who had always been kind and had watched them grow up alongside me, treating them almost like her own granddaughters, apparently couldn't bear to see them in such distress. She finally told them about my decision, about the path I had chosen, a path that didn't include either of them. This time I had chosen a whole new life for myself. So they had tracked me here, using all their family's vast resources, trying every possible connection, spending millions of dollars all just for the chance to see me again, to talk to me. But listening to their story, I felt absolutely nothing inside. No pity, no lingering affection, just emptiness. I took out my phone and played the recording I had secretly made that day in the park, the one where they confessed their true feelings and plans to Mark. Then, with a completely blank face, I looked at the two of them. "Stop pretending," I said coldly. "The game is over. If you genuinely like Mark, then go after him. Don't use my life as a pawn to fulfill your own grand, twisted ideas of love and loyalty. I have my own life to live now, and I sincerely hope you won't bother me again." Hearing the recording and my blunt words, the once dominant duo went deathly pale. They stood speechless for a long time, only the sound of their recorded voices playing over and over again from my phone filling the silence. Isabel lunged forward suddenly, trying to snatch my phone, but I easily stepped back, watching her coldly. "This is a high-security research center, Isabel," I reminded her calmly. "There are security personnel everywhere. Don't think you can just smash my phone to destroy the evidence like you did last time. And don't even think," I added, my voice hardening, "that you can use my grandmother to threaten me ever again." Mentioning my grandmother brought a sharp pang of pain to my own heart. Grandma had treated them so well over the years, cared for them like her own flesh and blood. Summer fruit teas, winter woolen scarves. Since childhood, all gifts she bought were prepared in sets of 3. But them? They had threatened me with Grandma's very life when I was at my most vulnerable, when I desperately needed help. That was something I could never forgive. And I wouldn't. A flicker of pain crossed Sophia's usually solemn face. "Leo, it's not what you think," she pleaded. "That day, I just wanted to scare you a little. Grandma is like family to us too. Why would I ever actually harm her?" "Yeah, Leo, remember?" Isabel chimed in anxiously, glancing nervously at the approaching security guards, but not daring to step closer. "We were the ones who helped get Grandma to the hospital," I sneered. I did consider that fact, and that's the only reason I haven't sought further retribution against you. But my patience has its limits, and it ends here. "Sophia, Isabel," I stated firmly, "I am not that helpless orphan you used to bully anymore. I won't let anyone hurt me or my grandmother ever again. I have a long road ahead of me, a bright future to build, and I have no time or energy to waste on people who don't matter." They tried to say more, to plead their case further, but the research center's security team stepped in firmly. "Sorry, ladies," the head guard said politely but resolutely. "This interview time is up. Please leave the premises now, and do not disturb our researchers' work." Reluctantly, they had to turn and leave. After walking a short distance, Sophia turned back, her eyes locking with mine one last time. "Leo, we grew up together," she called out, her voice filled with a strange mix of defiance and desperation. "I don't believe your heart can truly be so cold that you wouldn't even consider our past friendship. We know we did wrong, but we'll find a way to show our sincerity. Our feelings for you haven't wavered." Isabel nodded emphatically beside her. "One day, Leo, you'll forgive us." Hearing those words now just made me laugh internally. In both my past and present lives, their tactics were always the same. They used our shared childhood, our long history, as leverage to manipulate me, to trick me into marrying them, fooling me into wasting my years in an empty, loveless life. I still didn't understand. I grew up with them, shared everything with them. Why didn't they trust me? Why did they choose to hurt me repeatedly over someone they barely knew like Mark? I also couldn't comprehend why, if they truly loved Mark, they were now trying so desperately to act like they loved me. I didn't know if their current declarations were sincere or just another calculated part of their ongoing game with Mark. But I knew one thing for sure. I would have absolutely nothing more to do with them in the future. I never wanted to see them again. However, I underestimated their persistence. In the following days and weeks, the quality of food served at the research center's cafeteria improved significantly. All the meals suddenly featured my favorite dishes. Every day at noon, a large, decadent chocolate cake was delivered, with enough slices for everyone from the senior leadership down to the cleaning staff. My senior colleague couldn't help but sigh. "Leo, are those two trying to win you over with food now? They're certainly being generous. Let them envy all they want, I replied dismissively. In choosing this path, who cares about material gifts? Exactly. I was no longer that naive boy who could be swayed by a piece of cake or a few sweet words. Now I had a bright and promising future ahead of me, a beautiful life I was building for myself. Sophia and Isabel were just insignificant footnotes in the long span of my existence, but the less I cared, the more effort they seemed to put in. A constant stream of expensive gifts arrived at the research center addressed to me, making the situation increasingly unbearable and disruptive. In the end, it was my mentor who had to step in and firmly put an end to the farce, contacting their families directly and demanding they cease their efforts. I was helping Grandma take a slow walk in the garden, enjoying the sunshine, when they approached us. Richard was with them, looking teary-eyed and subdued. "Leo, we have something we need to tell you," Sophia began, her voice heavy. Isabel added quickly, "We know you don't want to see us, but please, just hear us out. This will be the last time. If we don't get this off our chests, we won't be able to rest easy." I had no desire to deal with their drama, but Grandma gently patted my hand. "Go ahead, Leo," she urged softly. "Some things can't be avoided forever. Whatever the outcome, this needs to end." With a sigh, I led the three of them into the living room. As soon as Sophia and Isabel entered, they both knelt down abruptly on the floor, their faces etched with sorrow, looking as if they were engulfed in endless pain. "Leo," Sophia began, her voice trembling, "the night after you left the city, both Isabel and I had the exact same dream. In the dream, we each saw ourselves doing terrible things to you, things from our past life." Isabel continued, tears streaming down her face. "The dream felt so incredibly real, Leo, as real as if it had actually happened. We suddenly understood everything. Why you left, why you've been so cold to us." I didn't respond, just watched them. Meanwhile, Mark rushed towards me, sobbing loudly. "Leo, please help me out here, will you? I never meant to mess up your relationship with them. I haven't done anything wrong. I just liked the two sisters and wanted to repay your past kindness to me." "Shut up!" Isabel suddenly screamed, yanking Mark back forcefully and slapping him hard across the face. She was shaking all over with uncontrollable anger. It's all because of you, stirring things up, that we are in this mess with Leo now." She turned back to me, still furious. "We found the diary he hid under his desk, Leo. He didn't like us at all. He deliberately got close to us because he was jealous of you, jealous of everything you had. He wanted to hurt you by using us." Through their tearful, fragmented story, I finally learned the details behind many things that had puzzled me across 2 lifetimes. Mark, using the information he gleaned from me about my close relationship with Sophia and Isabel, had meticulously figured out everything they liked, their insecurities, their desires. He then carefully crafted himself into the person they would find most appealing, sometimes being elusive and mysterious, other times acting cute and vulnerable, like a cat playing with mice. He had expertly toyed with both of them, manipulating their emotions and insecurities. Seeing no way to explain himself out of this, Mark finally dropped all pretense. He looked venomously at Sophia and Isabel, his eyes red-rimmed, and shouted hysterically, "Yes, I did it on purpose. So what? Why does he get to have everything from birth while I have to scrape by, relying on his charity just to survive? I look good too. Why are you all so head over heels for him? I was unwilling to accept it. I just couldn't accept it. I was going to destroy him with my own hands. Show him that the love he prides himself on, the friendships he values, are just trash that I granted him permission to have." Isabel couldn't take his vitriol anymore and kicked Mark hard, sending him sprawling onto the floor. I had always felt people's eyes on me, heard the pointing fingers and whispers throughout my life, but this raw display of hatred and jealousy felt different, more severe. I quickly intervened. Enough! If you want to continue this drama, take it outside. Don't put on this pathetic performance in front of me. Leo, I'm so sorry, Sophia sobbed, turning back to me. I was just too dumb, too easily deceived by him. I completely forgot about our past, forgot how good you always were to us. The two of them looked at me in utter despair, bursting into fresh tears together. Clara kept mumbling. My feelings for you never changed, Leo. But you're so smart, so outstanding. I wasn't sure I could ever truly win you over on my own merits, so I foolishly believed his lies, his manipulations. They thought by doing all this, by creating this web of deceit and betrayal, they could somehow pull me into their messy emotional entanglement forever. They believed they could keep me tied to them, bound by shared history and manufactured drama. Unfortunately for them, things didn't always go according to plan. I had struggled through the muck they created, grown stronger, sprouted wings, and flown far away. They couldn't hold me down anymore, nor could they ever hope to catch up to me. Mark ended up back in the hospital from Isabel's assault, reportedly disfigured, and eventually dropped out of sight. Sophia and Isabel faced significant repercussions within their own families and businesses. Using the connections and influence I now wielded through my research position and my teachers, I applied pressure to ensure they were kept far away from me, unable to interfere in my life again. They might have been able to bully the Leo who had no parents to defend him, but they couldn't bully the tenacious, rising version of me. The day I returned to the research center after my vacation, the sun was shining brightly. I had no idea what the future held for those three individuals who had caused me so much pain. All I knew was that my own path forward was clear, open, and radiant with promise.